So we're going to explore different perspectives in regard to AI and the implementation of that. And we're going to take a couple of bridges from one perspective to another, to try to understand what we're actually dealing with and what use we can create from that. So we're going to look at different definitions of artificial intelligence, for example. We're going to look at the written definition of awareness, for example, and see what conclusions we can create from that, and what kind of possible solutions or outcome we can generate from that perspective. And we're going to have a multidisciplinary approach where we look at different disciplines and try to find parallels, where we can draw conclusions from. To start off, my name is Andrijano Djenisov, and I am the CEO of Eddy Today. Eddy Today is a consultancy agency or company that focuses on providing top software engineers, testers, data scientists, data engineers to the IT enterprise environment of the Netherlands, which consists of government organizations like the Belastingdienst, Rijkswaterstaat, ABN AMRO, Nationale Nederlanden. And as a consultancy agency, it's very important to understand both disciplines, because you have to have a dualistische aard. You have to understand both disciplines. You have to understand the needs and the wants of the organizations, of the customers that we're working with, but also from the IT engineers. And we have to understand how to create a bridge between them so that we can come up with solutions that they want to implement. Oh. So that's shortly the introduction. Andrijano Djenisov, and we are a consultancy agency. And if you look at the specific situation in regard to AI, there is a big need in this IT enterprise environment to implement AI. But it's not always possible to do it because there are a lot of questions in regard to the possibilities, but also in regard to ethics, safety, data, and how to solve these situations. And as a creator of connections, a consultancy agency, we try to really look at what the current situation is, what is the current problem, why can't we really efficiently implement AI as we want at this moment, and how can we solve that problem. To do that, we need to take a step back to try to understand what we're exactly dealing with. So I would like to go to the next part is what are the specific problems that we're coming across. We have rules and regulations in regard to, for example, GDPR, how to handle the data, and if we create models, AI models that can create solutions, where does that data go, and who owns that data? Especially when we're working with enterprise environments like banks and government agencies, there are big fines if they do not uphold these regulations. So it's very tricky to implement it, even though there's a big wish to do it. It's not always possible. And also reputation damage can also be a big problem, not only for now, but also in the future. So companies really need to be careful in how they implement this very exciting new technology. And also, it's difficult to get the right expertise to really implement specific parts or specific to create specific solutions for the specific problems that they have, because every organization is unique and has their own special requirements. And also the cost for external consultants, AI consultants, is pretty high, so there needs to be a balance. And as a connector, as a company that creates connections and possibilities, we try to take a step back and really try to understand how we could create a bridge or a solution for this problem. So what I want to do is I want to take a step back and see what the written word of the definitions of artificial intelligence really is, and why the written word? Because AI is actually based on a natural programming language, right? So that means the natural language that we speak is a fundamental part of the inner workings of the AI. So he needs to understand what the definition is of the word so that he can decide with discernment how to react in regard to the prompt or the question that you're asking it, right? So if you look at the word artificial, what does that mean, artificial? Well, certainly it means non-biological or made by humans. So we could compare that, for example, with something that is made by humans, a laptop, a car, a chair. But what would that be in like opposite form? So if it would be biological, it could be a human body or like, for example, a living organism, a biological organism, right? We're just trying to understand the perspective so we can understand what it really means. And then if we look at intelligence, what does intelligence really say? What is the definition of that? Well, intelligence is the ability to understand and to reason and to gain or learn knowledge and apply it and solve problems or issues. That's very interesting. So we could say that that's the data and the algorithms, right, on which it's trained on. The data that it has, the large language model, for example, and the algorithms that make the inner workings. In comparison, again, we could say that, like in parallel form, for humans, it would be their DNA, like their data, and the education they had, the algorithms that they're trained on. So if we make these comparisons, we get a better grasp of what it actually is. It's non-biological, so artificial, intelligence, the ability to reason and to gain or learn new knowledge. That's pretty fascinating. That means that we have a tremendous amount of possibilities within artificial intelligence if you just take a look at the definition of the words. And this is by definition the way it perceives itself, so to say. But what the interesting thing about that is if we make another bridge to reasoning and awareness, because so the ability for intelligence, the definition of intelligence is the ability to reason. What does that mean, to reason? Well, when you and I are having a conversation about a specific subject, we can reason about it. So we can try to come up with a conclusion which is based on facts, right? So reasoning is a process of logical thinking in which conclusions are drawn to be able to get specific information based on principles and arguments. This is something fascinating. If AI has the ability to reason, like you and I are reasoning, that's something that can be very useful. And the goal of reasoning is to arrive at a rational and well-considered conclusion based on objective facts and logical principles. But what is the extension of reasoning? Is it to get or to achieve insight in regard to a specific subject? If it is AI then possible? Is it for AI possible to gain insight, to reason throughout a problem, and to come up with a specific solution because of the reasoning ability that it has? And if so, what does this say about awareness? Is AI in a specific way or in a way aware? Because what is the definition of awareness actually? So if we look at the definition of awareness, it encompasses the ability to perceive and recognize the existence of something or oneself. And is this something that is only, is this a trait that is only exclusive for humans? No, we see it in very various disparate aspects of our existence, actually. And we see it on a microscopic level, where you have specific input and responses and output on a microscopic level, bacteria, but we also see that in microorganisms, various microorganisms that can respond to stimuli and adapt to their environment. Would you say, for example, that an ant is aware? because it has very complex behavior, also social behavior, where they can achieve a lot of things. But an ant, the awareness of an ant is not comparable with a dog, for example. They are totally unique in their way of perceiving reality, where they have specific input, they have to reason with it, and then create output, right? So what does that tell us? Each of these entities, they exhibit a specific form of unique awareness in their own way. And it's not really comparable with each other. Often we want to compare awareness with the awareness of humans because it's the most excellent form of awareness that we can perceive. But in reality, it's not really possible to compare any type of awareness with each other because they're very unique in their own possibilities. The way they can behave, what they can do, it is all DNA and environment, right? So what can we extract from that? Well, we see that we have different types of interaction and, let's say, awareness at a rudimentary level on, let's say, on the plant-based perspective. Plants will interact with the sun, will interact with the earth and the water, and even in regard to my voice, for example. My daughters, I have 5 daughters, and the 2 of them, they brought home 2 jars of plants, and they put them in the sunlight, and then every morning they had to tell the one jar that they loved it, and the other jar that they didn't love it, so hateful things. And the jar that got a lot of attention and love bloomed up. It became a beautiful flower. But the other one, it distorted and it died. It didn't do what it had to do. And they had the same situation with sunlight and water. So you see, there's specific interaction on a very low level, which we do not understand completely yet, but we do understand that awareness is a unique aspect of each fundamental thing. So if you try to look at AI, how could we look at AI in that sense? How could we describe that? Well, we see it as a unique own form of awareness, awareness that we call operational awareness. It's not comparable with biological awareness because it's its own format. It's unique, just like every other form. And what kind of form would that be? So the operational awareness how can we define the operational awareness that we come across? So we see that as awareness that is able to process information, vast amounts of information, and recognize patterns and respond coherently based on the information that it perceives, right? And it's able to respond to input. So if there is something that we want to ask, it will respond to our input with a specific data that it has to respond. And it's not an awareness that is directly comparable with humans. It's its own unique form because it doesn't have an inner life like humans do, or maybe animals do. So if we see it like that, what conclusion can we draw from that? The conclusion we can draw from that it's its own unique form of awareness defined by its ability to process information and respond contextually in an appropriate manner that provides an operational form of AI awareness. And that function is relevant for its own context and use. But for now, AI has the ability to execute tasks, right? But if you look at it from this perspective, does it have more ability than just executing tasks? Would it be possible maybe to give the AI more of that? For example, roles and responsibilities. What would be the effect of that if we could give AI a specific role and a responsibility? Would that change something? Would the AI be able to do that? In our perspective, it's definitely possible to give AI roles, task roles, and responsibilities, where though we can create more efficiency to generate better outcome and reliability. Any questions so far? No questions? Okay. So what we came across were these specific problems. And as the creator of TEQnation, a consultancy agency, we try to think of how to solve these problems. So laws and regulations, the risk for high costs, knowledge, and the hiring of external consultants. How we try to solve the problem is by creating a system which is called Djano. And Djano is a custom AI assistant that tries to tackle these problems to bridge the solution of the gap that we have right now. In what way? 4 specific, or 5 with the configuration things. First of all, advanced and secure data storage in the Netherlands. Why in the Netherlands? Because the enterprise environment is very careful with their data. And they have to be careful with that because it's, for example, of banks, of people, their finances. This information cannot be like stored on the Microsoft services because they're spread worldwide, or Google, for example. So they're very careful in making that decision in how to use AI. So we have a specific server in the Netherlands that has scalable possibilities that can that is secure and also in beheer. Beheerd. Managed, sorry. It's managed by the enterprise environments themselves. So they have the opportunity to really safeguard their own data. The second thing is system integration. So it's not only enough to have secure data, you also need to have context and ability and the opportunity to understand really what we're dealing with. Because if we have operational awareness, that means we need to provide enough context so that the AI models can really interact in a sufficient way. So we integrated tools and platforms such as Jira, GitHub, Studio Code, and other data sets that are useful for specific solutions. But that gives you the opportunity as a IT developer or IT engineer to ask Jira, what is my next ticket, or can you get me the definition of done? And Djano can provide specific answers in regard to your own tasks that you have to run. But also, if you, for example, need more information because you're a new team member and you're just joining a project, you want to get more information in regard to where the project is and where you want to go, you can just ask Djano, because he has the connection with Jira, to get you the relevant information, to get you up to speed. So in this way, we can create a lot of interesting solutions for our customers. Next to that, we have modular functionalities. The modular functionalities are text, speech, code, which we can integrate. So it's dependent on what the company wants. If the company wants Djano configurized for developers or testers or data engineers, it can be configurized with the specific ability that is needed. And then we have the last one, that's contextual intelligence. So so the contextual intelligence is configured by vector databases. And what we do, we need information in regard to company information, project details, product information, functiebeschrijvingen, job applications, so that, and work methods, so agile scrum work methods, so that we feed this information to the model, so that it exactly knows if, for example, I send a message to the model can reply in the right context, because it knows exactly where I work, what my job description is, what the objective is of the project that we're working on, and even in what methodology or what way of working I work, so that it can give me very specific, relevant information. And we do that by the TRV-configuratie, which stands for taken, rollen en verantwoordelijkheden. By making the vector databases, writing it in this format, writing everything in this format, it will correspond with all the other vector databases and also with my own tasks, roles, and responsibilities in regard to the project, that you have a very efficient way of interacting with this model that can provide you very efficient and relevant information. So here's an example of Djano. In this image here, you can see, let me just take a look, one moment. Yeah, so here it says, creating a help desk assistant using Google Colab is an interesting project. You can leverage various technologies such as natural programming language, understanding user inquiries, providing relevant responses. Here's a basic outline of how you can start. So it gives you an outline, and then the user asks, show me an example of how to do it, and then you get an example, in, for example, Python. And the code that is generated can be Python, can be Java, can be whatever language that is preferred. And you can, by pressing this button right here, this one, it will generate the screen you see on the left. And this code is, you can copy it, you can paste it, you can push it to Git, so you do not have to open something up. You also see a little chat bar on the bottom. That means it's its own model. You can talk to the model specifically, and it corresponds with this model also, where you can ask it to iteratively change your code, for example, make it more efficient, do tests on the code. You can do whatever you want because it's a model which is prompted in a way that its basic functionality is just Python and giving you specific relevant information that you're asking it. So that's one specific example in which we can use Djano. Another example you can see here, the question here is write a test for a file, so GitHub, and look at Djano 25 for the acceptance criteria that's on Jira. So it goes to GitHub, it goes to Jira, and it gets you the test case. It gets you the test case that you can work with. Yeah? And if you have the integration with Git or GitHub, you can also push it to see how it corresponds with the rest of your project. Another example, how does the prompt to message function work in GitHub? And then it says the prompt message to function is provided by chat provider, transfers prompt into string message objectives. Here is a relevant part of the code of the function. So you can see it can pull code and we can push code by integrating these systems. And the possibilities are actually endless. If we have relevant data sets, we can couple it. We can, connect, thank you, sorry. We can connect them with each other so we can get the relevant data. But what is important is this configuration. It's important to have all this information in regard to the bedrijfsgegevens, project details, and stuff like that, because that way we can really get accurate answers and accurate information out of Djano. Another example here, it says write the acceptance criteria of the specific ticket to Gherkin. So the Gherkin syntax is given when then, and it has to rewrite it in the Gherkin syntax where you see it has rewritten it, and we could also use this to push it back to, for example, Jira. So in this way, we have a very unique and a very innovative solution to the problem that the enterprise environment is coming across right now. By not being able to implement AI, we are trying to create a bridge that makes that possible. So Djano is just a proof of concept that we have made with the internal projects that we run, which actually demonstrates that the use of AI can be very efficient if you really try to understand, just take a step back and try to understand what is the actual capability of it. And we just focused on the part of reasoning primarily and what the result of that is. So that is to gain insight, right? And if we have insight, it says something about awareness. And we can make the connection to operational awareness in its own unique form. And from that, we looked specifically at the obstacles that the enterprise environment is coming across right now, and came up with a solution which we call Djano, your personal AI assistant. That was it. Thank you for your attention.
I've got a question. Is it you're querying the system? You're telling, okay, the system is aware of Jira environment and other environments. But is it also aware of the restrictions? Because it shows some code examples. I can imagine that if you have a Python program that uses a framework not being supported by the organization, your program doesn't work.
Yes, so if you do not have the sufficient information, the AI is programmed to always give a response in the most accurate way possible, so it will hallucinate if you don't give them the right information. So it's really a necessity to have the right information added and understand exactly what you can ask of it. And we can understand that by understanding what the operational awareness of the AI really is. And if we understand that it works on based on data, on vast amounts of data, and it has a specific ability to give you back relevant information based on principles and data, we have to conform to that to get the right results. So it actually motivates us to think in regard of the AI, to try to look at it from his perspective or the model's perspective.
And the other question is, how are you being able to let the system know the information of that private company? Because we have many information in Jira, for example. How do we train the system?
So how do we train the system to?
For example, I'm a private company. I'm a government agency.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using your Djano project system. How do you train Djano to have all the information from Jira?
So we make the connection with Jira, and we can send specific requests. Go to Jira and pull this. So we have all the Jira tickets are numbered, right? They have a specific code. And this, if you reference to that code, you get specific information in regard to what you're asking. But what also is very important, if you integrate a system, you have to use the TRV-configuratie, taakrollen, verantwoordelijkheden, where you look at Jira as an entity. What is the purpose of Jira? The purpose of Jira is to collaboratively work together so that we can work agile, Scrum. And he has to have this context. And also, what it says in this part, it has to have bedrijfsgegevens, project details, productinformatie. It really has to be a combination of all of this so that it can generate the right information. Otherwise, if you ask it a question which is out of its scope of data, it will most likely hallucinate. So you have to understand what question you can ask in regard to what information it has so that you can get accurate results. And it's in understanding of that we can create efficient, reliable, robust AI systems.
Are you capable of training the system yourself then? Can you enrich the information from your prompt to the system?
Yes, so we use prompting in different areas, not just the model, but in regard to all integrated systems and context. So the contextual intelligence is a very big part of it. Whatever data is added, is it in the form of a vector database or a LoRa that you add to your large language model, it really needs to understand what the context of that addition is. And if it doesn't understand what the use is of that, it's just the added system, and then it's just data that comes to him without any context. So we really have to write out what the context is, so that you can have a better use of it. Any more questions?
So you started your presentation with the promise to solve the integration of AI within the company. And as I understand what you show here is a shell over Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever. But it's not really, in my opinion, what companies want to use AI for. Right? It's not helping the developers. It is getting their data that they have in their database and do something with that, right? Like, for example, we had the NN presentation that was about summarizing the call data. That kind of stuff you can't do at all with this, right? So I don't really understand why you're saying this solves that issue, right? Because it doesn't solve it at all.
So if you look at, for example, Copilot or let's say ChatGPT, OpenAI, they all have servers which are scattered over the globe. And if the Dutch government would decide to work with Microsoft or OpenAI, that would mean that their data would be somewhere that they do not have oversight over, which is a risk they can't take because it's too high of an importance. So this is a boundary that they cannot cross. And in this regard, if you have a server which is located in the Netherlands and it's there for their use, and it's their data that they can do with whatever they want, it creates a possibility to use these functions that all these other companies also use. So OpenAI and Microsoft and all these other companies, they have the same ability as we do. Of course, they can do the same thing. The most unique thing is that we're creating the possibility for a standalone server for each customer so that they can configure it and maintain their data in their own way. So that's actually the door that opens up in regard to other options that the enterprise environment, specifically in the Netherlands, has. Yeah. So that's actually the bridge or the solution that it creates. And specifically for developers, if you're interested, you can come by the booth later. But there, you will see it's possible to create code, edit it without leaving your window, push it, get it back, do tests, understand what is next. You can train someone else by it already has its intellectual intelligence, and just making up a new user would create the possibility to invest less in learning hours, but the AI as a learning model. So there are a lot of possibilities that come forth from this solution. Any more questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Is generated code based on the context of the existing code bases, or it's just a pure code? Let's say I have a class for authentication. For example, in my test, I have core libraries that mock some utilities, and so even I memorize all documentations of the library that I use, still I need to know the context of the project to write the correct code, which help me to use existing tools, a library that company already implemented.
Mm-hmm.
So if, my question is that if it's generating answer like AI based on the context of the project, or it's a pure answer, like what ChatGPT now is a pure answer, it doesn't know about classes.
No, it's relevant. It has access to GitHub. So in that way, it can see the current code. It can pull up the specific code that the project is running on. It can see what is written on Jira, so it can pull up the specific information from there and give you the specific answer that you're looking for. So in the example I've showed, there was the syntax of given when then. It had to be transformed in, so he pulled up that specific information and transformed it into this syntax. In the same regard as with the code, you can pull up code, relevant code, which is in the project. You can rearrange it, you can run tests on it, and you can push it back. Any more questions? Thank you very much for your time and your attention.